IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. On the podcast today, we have a returning guest, Sahana Kulur, an educator and architect who was on the podcast not too long ago covering a wonderful itinerary on Bijapur. Sahana's back on the podcast covering yet another itinerary and a very, very important place in South India. Let's hop onto the episode and find out where Sahana is taking us to. So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome back, I should say, Sahana Kulur, an educator, traveler, and architect to the Musafir Stories. Sahana, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast and welcome.
Thank you, Saif. Thank you so much.
And Sahana, I know I mentioned that you're coming back to the Musafir Stories, but for first-time listeners, why don't you give us a little bit of a background about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm an architect by profession and I like history of architecture very much. That's the reason why I got into teaching. And the reason I like history is I feel the buildings built in the past truly speak for their time. It's not really to show off someone's wealth. Yeah, there are historical architecture that would show somebody's wealth, but when you look at an old building, you can understand what was the economical, social, religious status of a particular state or a region where that building is located. Somehow I always feel the old buildings speak to me better than the glass-cladded ACP filled buildings. So I'm a history teacher basically, and in my projects I always try to find solutions from the history because I don't want to do the same mistake as our historians did. So that's about it. And my travel revolves around all over India and abroad both.
Okay, wonderful. And those of you who would like to check out Sahana's previous episode with us, it wasn't too long ago. We did a wonderful episode on Bijapur that was much liked. I would definitely encourage you to check that out as well, and we'll make sure to include the link in the description of the podcast too. Now, Sahana, with the introduction and a little bit of a background out of the way, why don't you tell us where you're taking us to today?
Okay, before I'll tell you where I'm going to take you today, I'll take you to Sri Lanka first, and then I'll come to the place where I'm taking you today.
Okay.
So I went to Sri Lanka in 2019, and the whole point of Sri Lanka trip, I convinced my husband that we have to explore Geoffery Bawa, the architect Geoffery Bawa's buildings, along with some other things that he would like. So when I went to Colombo, Kandalama and places, I realized that Geoffery Bawa has designed a building in one of his buildings is located in India. That too is in South India. I may have heard of it when I was a student in college, but you know how students forget. So I also had forgotten it down the lane, and I was kind of shocked that I have not visited this building designed by the architect who inspires me most. Being in South India, and it is just around probably 400 kilometers away from where I stay. So I started reading about the place more and more, and all my first and second semester history lessons came back to me. So then I'm like, oh God, I visited Madurai without understanding what Madurai is as an architecture student. Now I really had wanted to delve deeper into what Madurai is and what Madurai is beyond what we see on the images or how I have sketched Madurai temple in the college. So yeah, that today's place is about Madurai in the state of Tamil Nadu in South India.
Wonderful. Really looking forward to it. And yeah, like you touched upon, usually first impressions is Madurai as a temple town, right? Primarily, that's the view we look upon it from. But while I was looking up for this episode, I discovered a lot of very surprising facts and lesser known facts about Madurai too. So really looking forward to exploring Madurai with you. But just for some context setting and some historical background, can you also give us just brief history of the place, who this has been ruled by, and also like just addressing the most important and iconic structure in Madurai too, right? The Meenakshi Amman temple, if you just want to add to that too, Sahana?
Sure, sure. Before I get into that, I think there was a movie called JigarThanda in Tamil.
Yeah, they just came back. They came out with a sequel or a prequel now, Double X, right?
Yeah. Correct. Exactly. So I'm like, I googled JigarThanda. Somebody told it's a good movie, and a kind of a desert kind of a drink came up on the image. I'm like, how is this movie related to a drink or a desert? Then I realized there is a drink called JigarThanda in
Right.
Madurai, and somehow it's not a very common name for a dessert or a drink, right? So JigarThanda movie and this, so yeah, along with Geoffery Bawa, JigarThanda came in, and my mother told me several stories, mythological stories about Madurai, and me and my mother both are fond of saris. So she was like, my granny used to have a sari from Madurai. It used to be like that, and this. So there were, I think, just because I came back from Sri Lanka and told my mom that there is a building designed by Geoffery Bawa in Madurai which I want to visit, many things got connected. I can't just pinpoint one reason why I picked Madurai. There are too many, and obviously, and I was getting into teaching, and it's always good to visit the place before you teach it to your students. So that's how I went to Madurai. So, regarding the history, Madurai is one of the oldest cities in the world. Obviously, it's difficult to get to the exact numbers, but there are descriptions in the ancient history and things like Talegari where they talk about existence of Madurai. So, the term Madurai means nectar or sweetness. So it is believed that when on the day the city was supposed to be named, Lord Shiva was there in the place, and his hair, the sweat dropped on the earth, and it was like a nectar. So that's why they called it Madurai. And there are many other mythological stories where it was called as Kadambavanam before, and a king was roaming around and he felt the nectarness in the forest and things like that. And it was ruled by Pandyans in around 400 BC, Cholas in 1100 AD, and obviously the colonizers British also came up. Some Islamic rulers from Delhi also tried to capture. So there is like Madurai has gone through a lot. They have seen a lot, and obviously, in the moment British came in, they took their architectural style was influenced by British architect, and British appointed Italian architects in Madurai. So some of the places in Madurai have sense of Italy, sense of France. But the beauty of Madurai is you don't feel like, when I tell you all this, some people say it feels like this Ramoji film city or innovative film city, where partly it is Greece, partly it's Switzerland, like how they show
Yeah.
in movies. But literally, Madurai, you don't feel that it is one. It stands as one. And obviously, the heart of Madurai is Meenakshi Amman temple. So it's those long gopurams, wide gopurams. What you see on the moment you type Madurai in Google, it's
Yeah.
like literally gives you some sense of calmness. So it has, the main temple complex has about 14
Gopurams.
gopurams. Yeah. So this is the history of Madurai.
Yeah, for sure. And even going by your descriptions and background, right? Like, looks like most of the big kingdoms or empires in South India at some point did rule this place. So we'll definitely look to a lot of the other things you mentioned too, including JigarThanda and the saris and everything. Now, in terms of the itinerary itself, how many days did you take to cover Madurai and let's say a few places in the vicinity?
I took actually 2 full days, but I have left some places which was little bit out, like a day trip places.
Okay.
So if you have 2 to 4 days, I think it's good enough.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, it certainly has a few places not too far off from here. So, be it a short weekend, extended weekend type of an itinerary, or even a long full week type of an itinerary to cover off other places in the vicinity, I think you can surely come up with enough to do. Well, when do you recommend as a good time to visit here?
I have a friend in Madurai who says if you come to Madurai in April, you'll burn. You'll burn to death. So yeah, the summers of India, which is April to May, June, it's like it is too hot. So I would say October to March is
Okay.
the best time. And but the beauty of April month is that's when the fantastic celebration of Madurai happens in April. It's called as Chittirai Festival. We'll get to that when we are explaining about Meenakshi Amman temple. It's like the entire town becomes a bride. It gets decorated. There are so many stalls, so many food. It's a celebration to watch in April. It's just that you have to bear the burning heat.
Yeah.
So I would say that if you are not concentrating on the Chittirai festival that happens in the month of April, your October to March is good.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Just plan your trip here depending on what your threshold is for managing heat. Right. I think that's the main thing that'll help you decide. And another point, Sana, just in terms of getting to Madurai, is it fairly accessible via most of the modes of transport, or how did you get there?
From Bangalore, I took an overnight bus to Madurai. But the most comfortable way is to get to there by train in from any city of India. And if you are in northern part of India, if you have time, you can take a 2-day train to Madurai, because Madurai Junction is one of the important train stations in South India itself. But let's say your landing point from any foreign country is Madurai. Very likely you'll be landing in Chennai and you'll have a layover there, and then you'll be coming to Madurai. Because Madurai has an international airport which gets connected to probably Singapore, Colombo, and some Middle East countries. So if you land in Chennai, I would say you explore Chennai for about 4 or 5 days, 3 days, then take a train from Chennai to Madurai. Otherwise, if you are in any South Indian cities like Kochi, Bangalore, Mysore, or Hyderabad, even for that matter, you can take an overnight bus also to get to Madurai.
Okay, that's great to know that it's very, very well connected and very accessible. So, getting there should not be a problem. Now, let's jump into the conversation and cover off some of the important places within Madurai as well, Sahana. Starting off with the Meenakshi Amman temple, right? We did touch upon that and the beauty and the architecture, how glorious it is. Do you want to share a little bit more in terms of your experience visiting there, and also a little bit in terms of the legend and the backgrounds about Meenakshi, Sundareshwar, and all that comes with it, Sahana?
Sure. So the vibe of Madurai is, I mean, I know it sounds odd. It feels like Mumbai. Mumbai never sleeps, they say. Madurai also doesn't sleep at all. So we were out early in the morning, wandering in the streets, and I'm like, oh God, I heard Madurai is vibrant, but why is everything is so sleepy? And we went inside the palace, temple, and everything, and we come back in the night, and it is so hyperactive. So the city wakes up slowly. It is definitely due to the heat. So most of the market and their trade happens in the night. So Madurai is also one of the cities that hardly sleeps, I can say. And coming to the history and Meenakshi Amman temple, so the city has developed around Meenakshi Amman temple. So if you look at Meenakshi Amman temple on the map, you feel the temple complex is like a square. It is actually a square. So it was designed based on the ancient Vastu Shastra of Indian, what in Indian context we used to use. So the temple is at the center, and there are subordinate temples around Meenakshi Amman temple, and there is a pond which has now a golden lotus floating on in the pond, and the concentric squares has been designated like the first squares are for kings and the priest, the second is for the soldiers, the third is for the laborers, workers, and travelers who would come and stay in Madurai. And the width of each square, like so in the square, if you say part of it is houses, the width what was left was based on how the chariots would move. This concentric squares used to be a city before, but definitely now the Madurai outgrew the temple city, so it has spread all over. And coming to the main focal point, Meenakshi Amman temple, so there is a bit of lovey-dovey story here. Okay, so it was the Pandyan king who didn't have an heir prayed to goddess Parvati, and they prayed so much that Parvati agreed to be born as their daughter. So they were doing a yaga. So she was born out of fire, and she was very beautiful, and her eyes were very attractive, shaped like a fish. The Meenakshi refers to the one with beautiful eyes. When you translate the Meenakshi word to English, so the girl was born with the beautiful eyes, so they named her Meenakshi. And obviously, she was the goddess who didn't know that she's a goddess, and she was daughter of a powerful king. So she learned all the warrior stuff. She was good administrator, so she went on warring against many kings, and there was not even one battle she lost. So she went all across India, and she finally reaches Kailasa Parvata. So she was about to confront Lord Shiva, and when she goes there, something weird happens to her. Instead of starting a war, she was born with three breasts, and she wouldn't have known why she was born with three breasts. And when she sees Lord Shiva, who she refers to as Sundareshwar, that means a beautiful person. Sundara means beautiful. So when she sees Shiva, on her third breast falls down, and she realizes that she's a goddess and she has to marry Shiva again. So it's like reunion of Shiva and Parvati. So obviously she convinces Shiva to Shiva would be knowing the fact, so he will join uh, Meenakshi to Madurai. So they come together, and the entire city gets celebrating their wedding. That's when the Chitrai festival happens. So Meenakshi Sundareshwar wedding is celebrated in the form of Chitrai festival, and Vishnu also comes. So he comes. The mythology believes that he came. He took bath in the Vagai river, which is there in Madurai. He takes it a dip, and he comes there, and he builds mandapam to give to the as a wedding gift to these people. So the entire Chitrai festival revolves around the first day is like Shiva and Parvati comes, and the second day Chitrai festival they take Vishnu's idol all around the patas around the temple. So the whole temple is like a love story of Shiva and Parvati.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, obviously the temple is beautiful, and I think stories and the background around it, like they kind of amplify and enhance the overall experience. Just learning about it and connecting the dots of, in a way, right? So, thank you for sharing that too. I was also very fascinated when I started reading about the background you had provided and just dug into it. And just in terms of looking at it from both from a architectural lens as well as your experience visiting it as a religious spiritual place, how was it? If you could touch upon how your experience was getting there, how crowded it was, all of that too, it'll be really helpful.
Sure. So the best part about Madurai temple is cell phones are not allowed. So there is a locker outside. I mean, when you enter the first square of those concentric squares, you have to drop your mobile phones and anything that you have metal, like your belts and stuff. So you'll be given a locker. So you have to drop your footwear also there. So then you go through several halls and corridors, and then finally you go to the main place where you can see Meenakshi Amman. So you are not allowed inside the Garbhagudi, but you can get very close to her. There will be definitely a lot of people. Probably you may have to wait for 30 minutes to have a closer look at the goddess. Apart from the main sanctum, I would say everyone should look at the pillars all around. the Singapore lion, what we saw, no, the one that has water falling out of its mouth.
Yeah.
So those animals are there on the column, and there are animals that might have existed in probably millions of years ago. So if you keep looking at the columns inside the temples, you can be lost forever. And the next thing I would say is look at the ceilings. Some of the ceilings have beautiful stone carvings, which are actually painted with synthetic colors now, which they shouldn't have done, because maybe the temple used to be painted with natural colors. Obviously, we don't have 100% proof that these temples were painted, but to preserve that, they use synthetic colors and have painted to highlight the some of the figurines, some of the patterns. In a way, you can say you destroyed the naturality of the place, but in a way those paints highlight certain figurines. If everything was in stone, you wouldn't have been able to notice, but because someone's face is painted in let's say beige and other faces are in pink, you can make out the differences. And all the sculptures all over the temple are highly detailed. You can read their expressions, like all this navarasa, what we call, you can read all that. So the next best part of the temple, my favorite, is Lotus Pond. So there is a giant golden lotus floating in the pond, and obviously it's like what we call as a pushkarini or a step well kind of a thing.
Right.
And after darshan, usually people sit there, relax, enjoy the vibe. So you can see all the corridors, pillared corridors. You can see some of the gopurams. You can feel the temple sitting on the steps of those lotus pond. And the must visit spot in temple. It's okay if you miss some of the parts, but you have to go to 1,000 pillared hall. So there are 1,000 pillars in the hall, and it has zero echo, they say. So I can whisper to you in your ears or shout, it doesn't echo. In no matter in which angle you see, you feel you are seeing all the pillars in a straight line. I would say it creates some kind of an optical illusion. And my husband was like, if I keep staring at this, I feel giddy. So this would be the 3 places which everyone must visit. If you want to explore every part of the temple, you will need at least around 5-6 hours. But I would say you can spend 2 to 3 hours. It's really good. And you can go near the entrance of all the 4 main gopurams and come back to where you have left your footwear and the locker at the end. Collect it.
Yeah, definitely. Depending on your taste and how much time you'd like to spend on it, it could easily be like a full day. Like a full day visit, or a few 2 to 3 hours, like Sahana mentioned. And very, very iconic, right? Like you mentioned, be it the 1,000-pillared hall or even the gopurams, right? Massive and very typical Dravidian architecture. And I believe the gopuram of the temple is also what is used as an inspiration for the Tamil Nadu state emblem, right? And the flag and everywhere else where the gopuram appears, it's the gopuram of the Meenakshi Amman temple. So very, very significant, very iconic, and is often synonymous. When somebody mentions Madurai, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the Meenakshi Amman temple. And I'm glad you got a chance to experience all the parts of the temple too. And some of the other prominent temples in and around the Meenakshi Amman temple as well. Do you want to cover those off, Sahana, before we jump to some of the other aspects of the city?
Actually, about the gopuram, I wanted to mention one more thing. If you observe the Dravidian, the South Indian style of architecture, the gopurams have straight lines, like where they can be slant, but they are not curved. The beauty of Madurai temple gopuram is they have a slight curve. If you stand especially on the terrace of a nearby building and observe that, you really feel that there is a slight curve that brings in some kind of, calmness for the viewers. The best way to enjoy that is, I had a friend, I think I mentioned his name, Harish Javahar. So he was the native person. So he took me to a nearby bookshop and requested the shop owner to let us to the 5th or 6th floor of his terrace. So we took the stairs, we went up, and we could see, I think, three gopurams together. And when you see that from the top, no, it feels like there are landscape, the giant trees cover these gopurams partly, and it feels like you don't see anything other than these gopurams. It's like there is a forest below, and this four gopuram pops up. So it's a beautiful thing to see the gopuram from the highest point possible. Obviously, the drones can get you a better view, or if they build a skyscraper, which I really
Hope
don't
not.
want them to build it. Fifth floor you can see, but I really hope that never happens in Madurai. I would say it's better to go out of the temple, because attached to temple there is something called as Pudumantapam, which is a market, and probably 600-700 meters from there is a beautiful temple called as Alagar temple. So it is when you read about it, it will be mentioned as Z instead of L. They write Z. So
Yeah.
in Malayalam and Tamil we use Z as L, right? So
Right.
it's Alagar Kovil temple, and Pudumantapam is what I would say you should go and visit next.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Pudumantapam, right? That is also a very interesting place, almost a market within a historic structure, right? It is still a part of the temple as well. So tell us your experience there and what you saw around here.
I'm a fan of bazaars. Okay, my favorite bazaar till now is, there are two bazaars which I like most. One is Isfahan bazaar in Iran, and the second is Pudumantapam. So you may have shopped in bazaars. It's like you have vaulted roof, you have arched corridors, and the vendors on either side and things like that. But here it's one of the, like, I have never visited such a kind of bazaar anywhere in the world. I mean, in India, because you feel you are inside a temple, but you are going to go shopping. So literally it feels like shopping inside a temple, but it's definitely not a temple. So it was built as a resting place for travelers, and it also had a podium for dancers. So I think it's built around 1630 AD, I believe. It was ordered by one of the Nayaks. Like you said, at one point of time, Vijayanagara dynasty of Karnataka also ruled Madurai. So they added this right outside the temple. It's like you want to come visit Madurai temple, you stay here, enjoy the music and dance, you do darshan next day and go. So basically it was like a lodge. So the lodge is built in beautiful temple style architecture itself. So as soon as you enter, you see a giant statue of goddess. So people do puja, do perform rituals there, the smaller rituals compared to Madurai. And then there are dozens of shops. So you see these columns with ornated floral capitals. They bend towards, and below that they sit hundreds of vendors, mainly tailors. And so I'm like, it's a mall which is like a temple, and inside the temple you see tailors. And besides that, you'll see a jewelry shop owner also, and somebody will be selling knives and swords also. So it's very bizarre to look at it, and meanwhile, it's very beautiful. In one of the documentaries, Joanna Lumley also has gone to this tailors in Madurai Pudumantapam, and she also has got one of the top stitched from that. So have cleverly learned how to attract foreign tourists. So for Indians, it's very common to have your dresses stitched, right?
Yeah.
But for Europeans and Americans who come here, it's like I'm getting my dress custom stitched. So it's a big thing for them. So these guys who bring the fabric from like this fabric part of Sungudi saris and other things, you can buy there and get it stitched right then and there. So that's a fun part for most tourists to do. And then another good part here is there is an item called as tumbai. Okay, so it's basically a cylindrical fabric which has a conical end, and you can hang it. It's like a decorative element. So it's usually white in color, and you'll see the patchwork on it, like triangles, elephants, floral patterns on it. So from 7 feet to 3 feet height, you get in variety of sizes. But this is essentially will be part of the Dasara Golu or Dasra Bommai, what we call. Tumba is essentially made in Madurai, and it is part of most of the household in India who keep Dasra Golu.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And like you mentioned, especially the tailors and Pudumandapams, that bit also was really interesting to find out, right? Like basically bespoke, right? You're getting it stitched on the spot and with the customizations you want. And I think you mentioned in the blog too that they turn it around pretty quickly, right? It doesn't like take days together like sometimes it happens in the cities, right? You give it to a tailor, you have to forget it for a month and then go back and they've given it to somebody else, and none of that. They give it back to you in a few hours as soon as you
Yes.
share the cloth with them. So that was really great. And while we are at it, right, you also mentioned one of the other important things that is also like synonymous with Madurai is the Sungundi saris, right? Do you want to share a little bit about that, Sahana?
So another historical fact behind Sungadi saris. So when in Maharashtra, when it was getting invaded by Aurangzeb and other rulers, they kept on shifting their abode from west to towards south. So from in near Maharashtra, a group of Saurashtrians from Gujarat settled there, and the kings of Vijayanagara dynasty observed that it's like literally like they were refugees. So these refugees were excellent at weaving, dyeing. So Gujarat is known for bandhani. So the Vijayanagara dynasty who was ruling Madurai invited them to be part of Madurai. Like you come live in our city, take off your weaving factories here or workshops here. So what these Saurashtrians who settled in Madurai did this. They took bandhani techniques and blended the traditional South Indian style of temple borders, temple motifs to the bandhani. Thus, the Sugadi saris took birth. So it's like you have Gujarati bandhani, the tie and dye technique infused with the traditional temples, those peacocks, elephant borders. So Sungudi sari is like literally the union of south and west, and it's made of pure cotton. So the workshops are actually in-house. So, there are many shops who sell this in South Masi streets, which is one of the oldest streets of Madurai. So there are several shops here. It's a very unique sari, I would say, where we all speak, okay, Mysore silk means it has this kind of a design. If you say Shub saris from Bengal, it's white and red. But here it's like the moment you see it, will be like, hey, is it a Gujarati sari or South Indian sari? So it's both. So Sungadi sari is one of the things what you can buy, and they're not very expensive. So you get a good Sungadi sari for about 800 rupees. And obviously with the time it changed, so they add fabric also. Like if you want to get a kurta stitched or a western style top stitched with Sungadi fabric, that also can be done because they sell fabric also. So probably if you head to South Masi Street, which is one of the oldest street in Madurai, you'll find many shops of this. And if you want to actually meet the dyers and weavers, you have to go outside the city. They are located about in another village about 50 kilometers from the city. You can see the tie and dye there. But here also they explain you very well how these saris are made.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, very, very vibrant colors. Plus, like you mentioned, right, almost appears like a confluence of two styles together with the borders and the patterns, with the zari and everything. So, yeah, that was another very interesting find from this region. And while we're talking about saris, something also very popular in Madurai is the jasmine flowers, right? They're also GI tagged, I believe, the Madurai Mali or Malike, whatever they call it there. So I'm sure you probably have come across those two in the markets as you were passing through them. A lot of jasmine flowers are popular in the city. And, I also came across this Talampu Kumkum, I believe, right? That is also supposed to be very popular. Basically, your kumkum that women use. So a lot of very interesting things and roaming around these markets.
Prasadam, what they give in Madurai temple, you can feel that it's darker than the usual. So it's actually dark maroon, and it doesn't lose its color so soon. So if you keep kumkum in a bowl, it tends to lose its color and gets faded. No, but it has some distinctive smell. It smells something like sandalwood. I don't know, but if I felt it smells like sandalwood. But yeah, it is very dark in color. So the next most interesting thing about Madurai market is two things. One is chili and the banana. In our life, we had never seen so many types of bananas at one go, and we didn't realize that okay, there is Nendrambale from Kerala, which tastes little bit different, and Yelakki banana from Karnataka, which tastes little bit different. But banana market in Madurai is like a universe of banana. Yeah, I would suggest you don't have breakfast or lunch. Skip that. You go to this and keep trying bananas from every vendor, and you'll fill your stomach also, and you'll be shocked to see why there are so many. Banana type. So when I told this to people, they're like, "Hey, you're from a tropical country. Why are you getting so excited for bananas?" No, the banana market in Madurai is that existing, and you have to go in the early in the morning. So that's when all these caterers and the material procurer, everybody they come to purchase. So you can see bargaining also. So some shops will be auctioning also. And when we asked to talk to people, the banana vendors, some of them said it's from their own farm. Some people get it from the others farm and sell it here, and they said there were 30 varieties.
Wow.
And I don't know the names of it. Okay, I'm honestly, I actually thought I'll write it down, and I'm like, okay, I forgot, but each 30 tasted different. I didn't try 30. I'll be honest. Probably I must have tried 15.
So yeah, really fascinating to know about some of these different types of bananas. And while we are talking about food, the cuisine of Madurai is also very unique that way. And given that one of the reasons that you came to Madurai in the first place was also JigarThanda, right? Just the curiosity for that. Do you want to share a little bit about the different cuisine and things you tried out in Madurai, starting with JigarThanda, Sahana?
Sure. It's evident to most Indians that JigarThanda means the one that keeps your mind cooler.
Liver cool.
So
Literal meaning is JigarThanda, liver cool is what it is. But yeah, go on.
So it was JigarThanda. It's invented or prepared first by the Saurashtrians who shifted to Madurai, who couldn't bear the heat. So it's neither a dessert that you can eat fully, nor a drink that you can drink fully. So it's like eat and drink. So you need a straw also and a spoon also to have this dessert. Uh, so the famous place to have JigarThanda in Madurai is it's called as famous JigarThanda.
Right. Surprise.
Yeah, so it's like if you type famous JigarThanda, you may get something, but there is a place called as famous JigarThanda who make this the best. So it is made with condensed milk. And they add something called as nannari or nannari. I'm not sure. I'm maybe pronouncing
Yeah, I
it
think
wrong.
it's Nanari syrup.
So,
I think they use it primarily in a lot of other drinks too in Tamil Nadu.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, nannari soda, and they add this jelly kind of a thing. So it's basically a condensed milk thing, so which you can eat and drink. The part you eat is very jellyish, then it is sweet, and it definitely not over sweet. And in my life, I would rate. I have probably 4 famous desserts. So first one is tiramisu, which I eat in Mangalore of Karnataka from Paba's ice cream. So nothing has beaten that. And the second one is from Salzburg, Tomaselli Cafe. One of the cakes they prepare is my favorite. The third one is JigarThanda from Madurai. So when I'm telling that to you, actually I'm swallowing my. Actually, I'm literally drooling.
Yeah.
Uh, And the fourth one is jiggly cake from Japan. So if you are in Madurai, I'm sure it will be one of your top dessert or drink that you would ever have in your life. It's a must have.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like we mentioned, there is a movie called as JigarThanda also, so don't get confused. But
Correct.
definitely try out the JigarThanda while you're in Madurai. And just even in general, right, your meals and everything, what are the different kinds of things that you tried out while in Madurai?
uh, First the mindset we went to Madurai, and I told my husband that it's a temple town, so you'll have no non-veg food to eat. So you have to stick to Madurai vegetarian food. And I had heard that, and I had tasted Madurai food before. It was good, but we go there and it's a gala of non-vegetarian food. Okay, I mean, I also had my good share, especially the podi idli from Murugan idli shop. uh, 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 they have that perfect balance of spices, and that it's not the moment we say podi idli. Some of the restaurants in Bangalore sell you podi idli and they pour ghee into it.
Yeah.
But the actual podi idli what Tamil people make are literally not that. So it's just a spoon of ghee, and the powders what they make, that they spread over the idli. It's amazing. And their dosas also come with the podi dosa, podi idli. In Murugan idli shop, it's like really tasty. And their sambar is very different from the other parts of India what you get in Madurai. So they add a bit of brinjal, bit of drumsticks to it. So their sambar is also good. So vegetarian wise, I would say Murugan idli shop and Shabari mess meals are really good. So I think anywhere which is labeled as mess and it looks very humble in Madurai, no, you should just go in. You will have a good food. So mess concept is very much evident in Madurai, whether it's veg or non-veg. So Shabari mess is one of the good place to have vegetarian meals. So coming to the non-vegetarian food, I have made a list what my husband dreams of it every day. So we call sukka, right? The dry meat.
Yeah.
So they call it chukka, chukka. Our friend Harish took us to a place called Kumara Mess. Apparently, their mutton chukka was like heavenly. A mutton chukka, and they have mutton nenju soup. It's very watery, and you will have the mutton chops on top. And this mutton chukka goes very good with something called as bun parota.
Right.
So they add egg to it. So it's neither a bun nor a flat parota. So it stands somewhere in the middle. And then next would be curry dosa. So the dosa with the egg omelette and scrambled egg kind of a thing. So curry dosa is also very very tasty. Apart from this, another vegetarian delight I would say is Invade Premavilla's halwa shop. They have an array of halwas. I don't know how they have mastered it. The plain halwa, banana halwa, or carrot halwa. They have sweet pumpkin halwa. They have so much of variety, and you can get it and packed. It will stay up to 2 to 3 days without refrigeration. And the beauty of this Madurai desserts and sweet is it's not too sweet. It's not overloaded with sweet. And there is right amount of ghee. So it's not like the moment you squeeze the halwa, it's not that you'll have a ghee stuck all over your palms or nothing like that. So I would say non-vegetarians run to Kumaramas, had all most of mutton things, mutton chukka and mutton ninja soup. Vegetarians go to Shabari mess, have banana leaf meals as much as you want. And for breakfast, you can go to Murugan idli shop, have their podi idli, podi dosa. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I think one of the things that really goes under the radar is the non-vegetarian food of Tamil Nadu, right? It doesn't get spoken about enough, but it is actually very unique and very popular. And once you get there, you will realize that how many different varieties even you have access to, right? So that's great. And one of the other unique things I came across, Sahana, was something called as paruti pal, or cottonseed milk. So that was also very unique. I came across that. And then coconut stem or the coconut bark, right? They just like take out those flakes of the coconut tree. Again, it's not very common that you'd think of these. So yeah, a lot of very unique and interesting things, and I'm glad that you got a chance to try out a lot of these too. We covered off a few of the places primarily from religious and spiritual significance, the temples. Any other places that you'd like to start touching upon, Sahana?
Yes, so I want to talk about two more temples. I mean, when I say temples, I mean visitors need not think that what is she on a pilgrimage trip or something, because you need not be religious or spiritual to go to these places. So the beauty of those places are like that. And because I mentioned mutton curry, I want to mention the chili of Madurai
Right.
before I go ahead
Yeah.
to the temple. So you get this, probably their size of a 2-inch diameter. Those are round chilies. Apparently, that's what makes those Madurai's mutton curry very, very good. I got it and tried to make vegetarian sabji with it. But yeah, it tastes amazing with the mutton curry. If you're a non-vegetarian cook when you're in Madurai, you must get a bunch of these round chilies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very different looking, right? Even I had not come across because usually the red chilies are thin and long, right? These are
Yes.
very rounded. It almost like you'll not think it's a chili when you look at it first, right? So, yeah, that's true. That's also very unique. And yeah, you were adding a couple other places too that you wanted to mention.
Correct. So my own constant dream was, I see the temples, I see the gopuram, I see the vimana, but I never touch it. I am never able to climb it. But actually, unknowingly, my dream came true at Madurai when I visited Koodal Azagar temple. It's not a huge temple. It's located somewhere in the residential area. And we were walking and we came across this. It's dedicated to Lord Vishnu. So we went inside the temple, and the rituals were going on and things, and there was a signboard that said, to go to the terrace you have to pay 10 rupees extra. I'm like, what? No, temples take 10 rupees, and why should I pay 10 rupees to go to terrace? So in my broken Tamil, I asked, like, why are you charging people to go to the terrace? He said, you go there, it feels good, he said. He also, like, there was a language barrier. So we paid 10 rupees each. Then we were like, let's see what is there in the terrace. So we go to the terrace, and then there were two other staircases leading to the gopuram. I actually literally touched the gopuram, went to the topmost part of the temple, and from the terrace I could see the gopuram in, what do you say, from the closest, and that part is not used by many. In fact, this Alagar Kovil temple itself, Koodal Azagar temple itself, not many people go. It's one of the unique experience, not only in Madurai, I would say in India itself, where you can actually reach the gopuram to a terrace. So
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that is definitely a very unique experience, right? And just at least for the sake of that, if you can make it to the terrace, I would recommend trying that out. And I think the other one you also mentioned in the blog was the Tepakulam, the floating temple, right? That was also a little different in the sense that this is, yeah, like almost like a floating temple that way, and also
yeah.
like different types of experiences, right? And all three of these temples that you've talked about, be it the Meenakshi Amman or the Alagar, Koodal Azagar temple, or the Tepakulam temple that we just touched upon. So I'm glad that you were able to cover off all of those. And talking about different and unique type of structures, one of the other things also that you mentioned as a part of your travelogue is the Thirumalai Nayak's palace, right? Again, a little different in terms of we were looking at temples all this while, and this one is the residence of the king, right? Do you want to share that experience, Sahana?
Yes, if you have watched this Tere Bina song from Guru, where Abhishek Bachchan and Aishwarya Rai dances,
Yes.
do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah, that song was filmed here.
Yeah. And if I can add, before you go there, if you've watched Bombay, right? Kehna Hi Kya,
Kehna hi kya,
Arvind Swamy and Manisha
exactly.
Koirala, that too was filmed here. Yeah, I was wondering what that is, but yeah, I think as soon as you mentioned Guru, the first thing I looked up was it the same place? And lo and behold, that's what it was. Yeah,
And apparently many Tamil movies get filmed
right.
here. So when Vijayanagara kings took over Madurai, they name generals or person to look after the city, and they call them Nayaks. So it was Tirumala Nayak. He was the one who built that, and the architecture of it is inspired by French chateau, Italian wall coverings, the Mughal arches, and the beauty of it is you don't feel that okay. Yeah, I was talking to you earlier about like if you have so much of Persian influence, Islamic influence, Rajput influence, Dravidian influence to one building, it might end up looking like what do you say, an alien.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't feel that. It feels very much part of Madurai. And they have a small museum inside that display all the stones, artifacts, and some of the fabric used by Tirumala Nayaks, some of the sketches, ancient paintings, and things. So that small museum also gives you an insight on how the palace was, because partly it was destroyed later by British and the other invaders. I think the son or grandson of the person who built this palace destroyed the palace and took the building materials to build his own palace in Tanjore.
Yeah, grandson, I believe. I came across this too. I wonder how that turned out, but since we haven't heard too much about it, I'm sure it didn't really turn out that well. But yeah, it's supposed to be like quarter of what it originally was, what it remains now, right?
Exactly.
So
Correct,
yeah, very
correct.
interesting. And yeah, if you've, like Sahana mentioned, if you watch those songs too, you'll come across the beautiful architecture and the columns and the courtyard in between and everything. A really, really nice place. And if it's possible, definitely do make a visit here. I believe there's also a sound and light show that happens. I don't know if this is still a thing, but I came across this too being one of the experiences you could enjoy at the Tirumala Nayaka complex. As we start to wrap this up, do you want to call out some of the other places in the vicinity or even, let's say, on the peripheries of the city that you managed to visit or you didn't manage to visit even because of the trip, how short it was, Sahana?
The one thing I want to mention is go visit Kiladi. I think
Yeah.
we mentioned it in the earlier conversation, which is around 20 kilometers away from Madurai. And I would say walk around in the streets of Madurai, the South Masi Street, where you can find lots of saris, and you'll realize how ancient residential buildings of Madurai were. And probably the other things what other people can add is there are several Jain cave temples nearby, because Saurashtrians came. Obviously, many Jains also settled in. There are several caves where Jains Munis sat and did meditation, and there are beautiful paintings also inside those caves.
Yeah, for sure. I too came across those. But to your point, a lot of the Jain monks used to meditate in these rock or caves pretty much, and they have like a lot of carvings and structures made there, so one can visit those too. And another unique thing, from at least from what we've discussed so far, was the Gandhi Museum, right? That was also another thing I came across, and it's supposed to be very prominent because the first imagery of Mahatma Gandhi is in his dhoti and the loin cloth, right? And apparently it was in 1921 in Madurai that he first basically started wearing that costume or that attire, right? Just being inspired by the actual working class who barely had anything on their body, just they were using the bare minimum. So that way too, this place Madurai is very iconic that way. And the museum actually has the dress or the loin cloth that he was wearing when he was actually assassinated, right? The blood-stained cloth, all of that is also present, plus the overall history of the freedom struggle and the important people from Tamil Nadu and Madurai that were involved in the freedom struggle, etc. So if you have time for it, maybe make a visit to the Gandhi Museum too. All in all, like you mentioned, right? The city that never sleeps. So we usually associated that with Mumbai or with New York, even, right? Sometimes, but Madurai has longer or much longer than that been known as Tunga Nagaram, or basically the city that never sleeps or barely sleeps. So a lot of things to do. And any final thoughts, Sahana, as we wrap up the episode?
Yeah, one place I would recommend going again, little bit out of Madurai. It's a place called Villacheri. It's about 10 kilometers from Madurai. So you may have heard of the Dasara Golu, the Dasara Bommai, where during the 9 days during the September October month, they arrange the dolls in their houses in the odd number tiers like 3, 5, 7, 9. And these dolls are depict some stories. So there is Srinivasa Kalyanam, Radha Krishna, or any other significant mythological event. So the collection of dolls represent that. There are some places in India where South India where this gets manufactured. So one is obviously Mysore Chenpatna dolls, which are part of Dasra Golu. And there is one place in Andhra Pradesh also which manufacture that. Then there is Kanchipuram which manufactured these dolls. The main is Villacheri, which is near Madurai. It's about 10 kilometers. So their famous sets are this Seemantam set and Anna Santarpana set. And they're so cute, it's probably 4 to 5 inch. And the amount of detailing that goes into the each leaf in a tree or each plate full of food. So it's an amazing thing to see real Indian artists at work in Villacheri.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, like you said at the beginning too, right? It could easily be a extended weekend type of an itinerary to something like if you're adding these other places, and like for example, the Chettinad region is not too far away from here, right? So you could add all of those and make it easily a week long or probably beyond that too. But thank you so much, Sahana, for beautifully covering all of these places in Madurai, not just the temples and the architecture and the spirituality that they have, the markets, the buzz, the vibe, and obviously the cuisine, right? How can we forget the JigarThanda? Thank you so much, Sahana.
Thank you so much, Seth. It's always nice to work with you and somebody who is actually focusing on places to visit in India because only some of the places in India get limelight. I'm not saying Madurai is an offbeat place because many Indians, South Indians go there
Yeah.
for religious purpose. And some foreigners also do come here. There are one or two hostels also in Madurai that cater to budget backpackers, but it definitely doesn't make to everyone's list. You can go to Mahabalipuram from here, or Kanchi, or Chettinad, or you can even go to Chennai. So it's well connected, but these are the places which people should really enjoy, and everything comes with good food, good dessert. So why
Absolutely.
not?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, we'd like to thank you for helping us share places like these, right, that are not spoken about enough beyond, let's say, South India. Looking forward to connecting with you again in the future and bringing you back on the podcast. Thank you, Sana.
Sure, thank you, bye bye.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.